everyone, and welcome to Talking Villanova Football head coach Mark Ferrante. I'm Steve Pino. We're coming to you live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. We have a jam-packed show tonight, Coach. We're going to have 3 guests, but let's start with a really hard-fought CAA 35-28 win over the Richmond Spiders, and I guess we'll start from the kickoff, which started pretty well.
Yeah, well, boy, that was real exciting. Nola Awapatu took it 100 yards. I think in your broadcast you said 99
I cheated
yards.
him. I cheated him. I want to look at that, though. I think he had 1 foot above the goal line.
The stat sheet said 100, so I think that counts for a 100-yard return. And, yeah, what a way to start the game, right? He took it. Our sideline got electric. It was real exciting. And, opening kickoff for a touchdown to go 100 yards. It's the first one we had, and I heard about this afterwards, obviously, but it was the first kickoff return we had for a touchdown since the 2010 season, and Angelo Barbaro was the one that had that. That was an 85-yarder out there on the playoff game on the red turf out there in Eastern Washington, and Angelo was on the 09 team, so Angelo and his family were here for the game this weekend because, as we talked about last week, we celebrated the of the 09 championship team. So Angelo was there to witness the next guy that had a kickoff return for a touchdown. And, Nola did a great job. And that's the first or second game that we put Nola back there because Josh McGregor and Des Boykin have been our main returners. And Nola did some returning for us last year, but we haven't had him back there until just recently with the injuries to Josh and Des. Both were out with an ankle this past week.
Coach, I don't even remember. I got to ask you this because I was going to ask Nola when he gets on. How do you guys decide who returns kicks? Like, guys, Coach, I can do it and put their hand up, or you say, hey, by the way, you're coming back here to return kicks. Obviously, I know it's going to be a running back, a receiver, or safety, but the guys volunteer. They tell the special teams, I can do this, or how do you guys?
You see some of that in recruiting. Some of them do it in recruiting, and then you don't necessarily have a tryout, but you kind of have a feel once you get to know the guys once they're in your program who you think would be do well at it and so on. And during preseason or when they get there earlier in their career, you give opportunities to more than the guys that you settle in on, and you can never have enough of them. You can never have enough returners, kickoff or punt returners, and so on and so forth. So, but Nola's a guy who has done it in high school. He's done it for us before. Sometimes as coaches we get a little paranoid and overprotective because you don't want a starter to do something on special teams and then all of a sudden you lose them for the offense or defense or something like that if you were to get hurt on special teams. But when you're good at it, you're good at it, and Nola's good at returning, as our other returners have been doing a good job. Go back to that 09 team again.
Yeah.
Caesar, starting slot receiver, he was on all our special teams. Angelo Barbaro, I just said, he's the last one that had a kickoff return for a touchdown. Him and Aaron Ball were the 2 main starting running backs on that 09 championship team. So, you get to a point where, okay, he's good at it, we got to put him in. Yes, he's a starting running back. Yes, he's a starting safety. Yes, he's a starting corner. Yes, he's a starting slot receiver, but he's good at that as well. And, when you talk about a guy like Caesar wouldn't let us take him off special teams. He made tackles, so he not only returned, but he wanted to cover kicks because sometimes at our level, they know that might be their opportunity to get the next opportunity. So some guys want to put as much on film as they can to maybe have an opportunity to play past here.
Sure.
And Caesar was like that. He wanted to be on every special team he could and, show everybody what he could do.
And, Coach, from the highlight of the opening kickoff, Richmond then settles in with the football and had your defense a little bit off balance. It had you on your heels a little bit in that first half, and they put up a 28-point first half on you. But talk a little bit about, I guess, the ebb and flow of the game, too, as your offense is moving the ball as well.
Yeah, it was a crazy first half. It was offensive drive, touchdown, opening kickoff touchdown, then they drove and scored. Then we drove and scored. Then they drove and scored. It was one of those types of games. And, their quarterback's a good player, and they did some things that, they would have full house backfield and then go empty backfield. And then the quarterback would run a draw with the 5 wide receivers and so on. So it just took a little time. And I said this after the game in post-game press conference. Sometimes it's just a matter of settling in and getting used to the speed of how they're running their system. You know, no matter what you do in practice, no matter how good our scout teams can, emulate what the other team is doing and so on, you still have to get used to the game speed reps and so on and so forth. And when you look at the first half, they did move the ball. They had 270 yards and, as you mentioned, 28 points in the first half. And we had 210 plus yards and 21 points in the first half. So, there was a whole lot of offense, and both defenses were, trying to figure it out, if you will. And then, you go into halftime, we're down 7, and, the last couple of weeks, we haven't been in that situation. We've been up 13. We've been up 18. And, but the locker room was great at halftime. And I just challenged the guys, and as a coaching staff, we challenged the guys. We need that passion. You saw how excited it got on the opening kickoff, and you saw all the enthusiasm. And then, all of a sudden it started going the other way a little bit, and our sideline got a little subdued, if you will. And what we challenged them at halftime was, hey, bring that energy for the whole 30 minutes. You can't just be high when the good is going and then get down when it's starting to, go the other way. You got to just keep plugging along and just keep bringing that energy, enthusiasm, and motion, along with, more importantly, maybe, the execution. And really, we just settled in and executed better in the second half than the first half. We just had some guys missing some gap fits, and a couple guys not, 2 guys covering one and someone not on the other, and that type of thing. And that's kind of what happened in the first half, and then we made the halftime adjustments.
And we talked a little bit in the last couple of weeks. You talked about your team had been turning the ball over a little bit. More importantly, hadn't been getting any turnovers. And in this second half, this turnover might have turned this game around, because Richmond's driving to start the second half to get the ball down into the red zone, and your senior linebacker, Drew Liley, comes up with a big play.
Yeah, that may have been the biggest momentum swing of the game. Obviously, the opening kickoff for a 100-yard touchdown, that was huge to get it started. Yep. And then it went back and forth, as we just talked about. And then the second half, with them up 28-21, and they drove pretty well in that opening drive, kind of like almost what they were doing in the first half. And then Drew Wiley came up with that huge interception. I think he picked it off at our 7, so they threw it from, our 20 or 18, somewhere around there. And Drew made a great play on that ball. I mean, he saw it, and he went a long way to get to that ball.
I don't think Mancuso ever thought he could get to that ball when he threw it. And as you mentioned, he broke right on the ball, made a good two-hand catch up in the air, and kept his foot in bounds as well.
Yeah, and Drew he's been having a phenomenal year, and he's been a stalwart for us for a long time now. He's a steady guy. He's a consistent guy. He has a high motor. He really gets after it. And for his game, he didn't have a ton of tackles, but his stat line was really impressive. Yeah. I think he had 5 total tackles, but 3.5 of them were for a loss. One of them was for a sack, the interception that we just talked about, and he also forced a fumble. Unfortunately, we didn't recover that fumble, but he also forced a fumble. So he was selected as the CAA Defensive Player of the Week for his efforts. And that play right there, as you said, really turned it around because if they go up there, if they go score there, and now it's 35-21, or if they get at least a field goal and it's 31, you never know what's going to happen.
And then as you get your offense going, you get the ball back to your offense, you put a good drive together, you get it down in the red zone. Unfortunately, you miss a field goal attempt, which can be deflating for a team that's driven the ball down the field, but your defense never got deflated. They came back out on the field time after time and kept getting stops for you until they can give the ball back to your offense who could put 2 touchdowns together.
We talked about the first half stats. They had 270 yards, 28 points. The second half stats, they had 63 total yards and 0 points. And they only ran 17 plays in the second half, and the bulk of them were in the third quarter. So our defense total was on the field for the whole game, less than 50 plays. So our defense really stepped up in the second half. I don't think they got a first down after that opening drive of the second half.
Just throwing the stats, it limited them to 3 first downs the whole second half.
And they were probably all on that opening drive when they got down to our red zone.
And your offense put 38 plays together in the second half, 267 yards and 14 first downs.
Right. And we scored. In the third quarter, even though we did get close at one point, we didn't come up with points, but we controlled the ball, we controlled the clock. And then in the fourth quarter, we put 2 scores in, and, we were close to having a third, but we ended up chewing up the whole clock. We held the ball from midfield 7.5 minutes. and didn't score and ended the game.
That's got to be a great feeling as a coach saying, obviously you go in and score. It's a 2-score game with, say, 2.5 minutes or whatever you would score. But to be able to not give them the football back and have your offense end the game in victory formation is obviously the sweetest feeling a coach can have on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, that's something we'd love to do every week if we possibly could, to just be able to take a knee. But that did feel good. And the fact that we didn't have to give them the ball back. We had the ball time of possession-wise. It was real even in the first half, and I think we ended up with plus 10 or so minutes for the whole game.
Coach, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to actually come back with somebody who's been at Villanova longer than you, and that's hard to find in these days.
Well, there's a couple.
Not many left
We can name them.
But we're going to be back with head coach Harry Perrette of the women's basketball team after this quick break. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Football head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. We're joined by the head coach of the women's basketball program, Harry Perrette. Harry entering his 42nd season. Can you imagine that?
42nd year.
We'll get to what you were thinking when you started 42 years ago to where you are now. Because Harry, 765 wins. You're going to tie the record this year for all-time divisions, all three divisions, coaching at one school for 42 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He doesn't even know about it, right? He doesn't even know that's happened, right?
Yeah. He's worried about who's going to make a shot for him in the next game.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But Harry, talk about you start your 42nd season. I guess it's been a couple weeks now. You decided this will be your last season. You're going to stay on the next season and work with Mark Jackson, help him kind of formulate the women's basketball program for the future. But talk a little bit what went into your decision and why did you feel this is the right time to kind of move on?
I just felt like, arthritis in both knees. I mean, I couldn't stand to practice anymore, and I just felt like, I wasn't doing as much as I could for the kids, and I just said to myself, it's time to move on and bring somebody younger in here.
So you've been here, obviously, 42 years, as we just said. This is my 32nd.
Right.
You're like a baby.
In 1984, Coach Talley brought the football program back. You were obviously here.
I was here already,
at that point. What was that like?
Well, it was funny because when they dropped
you were here when they dropped it.
I was here when they dropped it. And I was really good friends with Bedison. Our offices were all close together, and then they dropped the program. I was like, oh, my God. And then, then they start talking about bringing it back. And, I talked to Dobbin and McGuire, the president, vice president, and, they brought it back, and, they had Andy come in. And, I forged a pretty good friendship with Andy. I was telling you that there's times where I was on the sideline with Andy, telling him to go for 2 every time they scored, or throw a bomb. And I just,
Yeah, that's.
I was when I was crazy, and I would just get myself into trouble all the time.
That's usually what you basketball guys think.
Yeah,
throw up a 3-pointer.
Just throw it deep, man, and hope for the best.
If you've seen Harry's offense, that's what he likes to do.
That's what we
throw it in from deep.
That's good. That's good, man.
But I always like to talk about coaches. You guys obviously coach different sports. You coach different sexes. Obviously, Harry's coached women for 42 years. Mark's coaching men in football. But they always say coaching is coaching. It's teaching. It's implementing a philosophy. It's getting kids to do what they can do to the best of their ability. I guess, Harry, I've known you a long time. We've had a lot of conversations. How would you describe your coaching philosophy? Not so much the style of basketball you like to play, but what you want these kids to come in, how they come in, and how you want them to leave.
I want them to come in, with an open mind and come to practice and want to learn. I just tell them, come to practice, work hard, go to class, those are the things you want them to do. And, and everything will take care of itself, I think, after that. I just think, if you coach them and they want to learn, they'll just develop, and that's what I think happens over the course of 4 years or 5 years. We redshirt a lot of kids. I think you do too, right?
We try.
Yeah.
We try, but we...
Some kids want to do it. Some kids fight you. But the new rule now, where if you redshirt and you get injured, you get the 6th year now.
Great.
So now kids are more inclined to want to redshirt because if they get hurt, they don't lose it. And we had a kid tear ACL the other day. She'll get a 6th year now, where 2 years ago you wouldn't have got a 6th year.
Yeah.
So just hoping that they turn out the best they can be.
Even if they play or don't play, or they redshirt their first year, not due to injury, they will get the 6th one back.
Get the 6th year if you get injured down the road.
Okay.
And it came into play the other day when one of our kids got hurt.
I got you. That's a little different than our rule.
Is it? I thought you guys had the same rule.
No. For us to get a 6th year, we almost have to have 2 injuries.
Oh.
But the redshirt rule did change this year. Not this year. Last year.
Yep.
Last year, the redshirt rule did change, where it used to be, as you know, if you play one play, you lose the year, unless it was an injury or something. Now our guys can play as many as 4 games, which is a good rule.
Which I think is really cool.
So we can play 4 games and then still save the year, without an injury, and it doesn't have to be the first 4.
That's the big deal.
That's the big deal, because you can take a kid and play him in a playoff game.
Right.
If you're making a run.
Exactly right. So that's been a good thing.
Coach, talk a little bit about your team. You're really young. You had a lot of injuries, and obviously just picked up another one. I don't know if that's for public consumption yet, but
it's all right.
Yeah, and so talk about it. Talk about your group in your last season, and I know you're off to an 0-2 start. I had a chance to be at both your games. You really fought hard defensively. You're just having a hard time getting that offense flowing. Yeah,
we're just really young. This is, I think, one of the youngest and most inexperienced teams I've coached, and it's funny, when you have more players than you need, no one ever gets hurt. But when you don't have enough players, then somebody guaranteed gets hurt. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened. So I was just saying that 2 of our best offensive players, Kelly Jaycott, and we have a transfer from Miami sitting out too, a girl from Denmark. She's back. Actually, she's back in Europe playing in the European Championships right now. She's for her national team. And those 2 kids are pretty good. So, but right now we're playing with kids that are freshmen, some true freshmen, and we're playing with kids that are redshirt freshmen, so they didn't play last year either. So offensively, we're really challenged. I think that's the biggest problem. And we got enough shots in the game. We got 34 threes or 35 threes up, which we'd like to do. But unfortunately, we only made 8. Last year's team would have made probably 15, and we win the game easily.
Right.
But it's just the way it goes. And I actually had said to Lynn and to Mark that I'm actually glad that I'm coaching this team. Like, I didn't want somebody new. Like, you wouldn't want to coach for a long time and have somebody take your place and not have a good team that first year, because then they're going to panic.
Yeah, cupboard's bare kind of thing. Right.
So now when they come in next year, they'll have Kelly, they'll have Sarah, and hopefully they'll get off to a good start so they won't feel any pressure on themselves.
And Harry, you talk about the group you have this year as being so young. What what do you do differently? I mean, you still want to teach, and you don't have time to kind of let them learn up to like you'd like the red shirt. And you don't have that opportunity. So what are you implementing? Is it just going a lot quicker than you want to with young people?
Yeah, we're scrimmaging a lot. I think the best way to try to learn is to scrimmage a lot. And unfortunately, I've said to a lot of the kids on the team, I said, we don't have time for you to grow up, so we're going to scrimmage as much as we can at practice. Hopefully, you can learn as much as you can, and and then you can really only learn in the games, really. But at least scrimmaging will help a little bit. But the thing that's funny to me is the kids are inexperienced and they just make so many mistakes.
Right.
And sometimes you wonder things that are common sense, but they're not to these kids that are inexperienced. Is it the same in football? I mean,
yeah, we know the feeling because we just talked about it. Our first half this past weekend, it was like. Why are we not covering the quarterback? He's their leading rusher. Why don't we have a guy on the quarter? Well, what happened on one of the particular plays I'm talking about is, they had the back in the backfield with the quarterback. The back motioned out, so now the empty backfield. So the guy that was supposed to cover the back went and covered the back, but then the guy that was supposed to stay inside and just spy the quarterback just in case.
And that's when he ran the first touchdown?
Just in case he ran the ball, also covered the back. So we had two guys covering the back, but then that was their first touchdown.
Yeah, right. I was up in the radio. I was up in the radio booth watching the game.
So yes, we have guys that and it's not just the defense. Obviously, it's everybody. We have guys that will make mental errors, and it'll cause sometimes a mishap. In that case, it costs a touchdown. In other cases, maybe a 3-yard gain becomes a first down or something like that if you don't hit the right gap or so on and so forth. And it happens all over the place. No one's ever going to be perfect, but you got to try to execute well, minimize your mistakes, your mental mistakes, and there's going to be physical mistakes. We know that. And just like your guys, you're not going to hit all the 3-point shooters you shoot, but you want to hit as high a percentage as you can.
Hit some of them at least.
Right. And you just talked about that as well. So it's the same.
Right.
When you're dealing with 18 to 23-year-old student athletes.
Well, one of the other problems is we foul a lot. You've been there two of our
games, yep.
And Maddie Seeger comes off the bench. I bring her off the bench so she doesn't get in foul trouble. Well, she comes off the bench in the second quarter. She gets 2 fouls in like 3 minutes. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? I'm trying to protect you from getting fouls, and you're coming in and you're fouling. And then she wants to know why she doesn't start. I said, I'm trying to bring you off the bench so you don't foul as much.
The bottom line is, and I think you'll agree with me on this, they don't do it on purpose.
No.
You know what I mean? We don't try to throw interceptions. We don't try to miss kicks. We don't try to miss tackles. It just kind of happens. And at times you got to give the other team some credit too. They play good defense and they shoot the ball well in your case. And in our case, they make good plays and the quarterback runs for 31 yards for a touchdown.
Right,
so
the other team
they want to win too.
Yeah, and we're playing these teams now. They know Mary's the best player, so now they double her all the time.
Yeah, they really went after her the first game, the George Washington game. I felt she was surrounded by 2 and 3 players every time she got the ball.
I felt bad for her.
But Harry, one more thing I did want to ask you. Obviously, we talked about you being here 42 years. You've seen a lot of coaches come through the program in all the different sports, and one of the things I've always loved about you is when I was coaching men's basketball with Coach Massimino and Coach Lapis, you were always around to support them and talk them. And I know you've done that with Mark after a tough loss just a couple weeks ago. You reach out with a text, and I know you've got a good relationship with Jay and a lot of the other coaches. And I guess talk about your experience as a coach and your experience at Villanova in terms of being a part of that community that Villanova always talks about.
Yeah, it is a community. And like when people say to me, you worked at Villanova, I kind of say, well, it's kind of work, but it's home to me, and everybody always asks me why I didn't leave and, all that stuff. And it's like, I had everything I needed there. I had a great community. I knew a lot of the professors, knew a lot of the, deans of the departments, and it became like I was going home every day to work, and it's just a great place to work. And I mean, don't you feel the same way?
I was just going to say.
Talking to 3 guys who have been up here a long time.
Right.
We might not be there.
Don't add up all these years because it'll be
You're preaching to the choir at this table.
Over the century mark.
Yeah, we've got to be over 100, all 3 of us, right?
But no, I mean, I'm glad you said that, Steve and Harry. I was just going to say the same thing, or I was going to just ask you the same thing. What made you stay so long? And you just answered it. But, getting back to how you led into it, Steve. Harry, I know Coach Taylor was the head coach for all those years early on, and I was assistant, so, head coaches kind of gravitate toward each other, and I get that. But Harry, in the last 3 years, this being my 3rd year, has always been there, like you said, a supportive guy. When you have your opening game last year and you win a game against Temple or something like that, I'm getting a lot of texts. You know what I mean?
Got a lot of friends that day.
But when you have the games that we had previously, the previous couple weeks before this weekend, I'm still hearing from Harry, and I appreciate that. I truly appreciate you reaching out, and because you got a great friend there, and a guy that understands what you're going through, and I appreciate the support, whether it's the congratulatory type things or the hang in there type things, and I do appreciate.
I always want to be people's friend when they're down, not when they're up, and then at least they know you're really their friend.
That's real, and that's when they need you the most. Right. Hey, we appreciate you taking some time out. We wish you the best of luck as you move forward with this young group, and I know they'll get better by the end of the year. That's for sure.
I don't know where she got the bobblehead.
And who's the next one? I know, isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome?
Is that a 42-year gap? Or how far is
it looks like it from hair to no hair.
Before we let you go, and Steve's got to read this next commercial here. When's the next one? Who you playing?
We play at American on Thursdays. We leave tomorrow, so that's why I got to run out of here. I got to go home and I got to get everything packed and try to get some sleep because we had practice this morning. I was looking for you when I pulled in this morning. You guys weren't out there.
We're going just a little later to give them a little extra sleep time with the earlier start. So
I thought it was too warm. You wait for it to get cold.
Yeah, it was warm.
Toughen them up a little bit.
Yeah, some of the guys dressed like it was still 50 when they came out to practice.
The first thing I did when I drove in was look. I said, "Are they out there or what?"
They were in for a rude surprise. We had some guys out there with no sleeves and everything because it was nice when they walked in.
I thought it'd be load management, like the Sixers. You know what I mean? You can't play every week.
We need to play this week, bro. We need to play.
You're playing Friday instead of Saturday. You got to give guys off, right?
No.
All right, here the sponsors need to hear their piece, so we're gonna run. Thanks. We're live from the Inn at Villanova. It's located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back with more talking Villanova football after this on 610 ESPN.
Get in the game.
Talking Villanova football head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time, and we're joined by the highlight, who just happened, Noah Wapetu, who I cheated out of a yard. I did it on Flow Sports. I only gave you 99 yards. Ryan Fannin had it right at 100, but Noah was named the CA Special Teams Player of the Week with his 100-yard return. It was the 7th time in Villanova history someone had taken the ball 100 yards or longer.
Okay.
And he scored 3 career touchdowns, and it must be something about Richmond he likes. He scored all 3 of them against Richmond.
Right. Last year were 2 pick sixes.
Two pick sixes on the road last year and the kickoff return this year. No, first off, congratulations on the team win. And then I talked to Coach a little bit about, how do you become a kick returner? And you mentioned something you did in high school a lot?
Yeah, in high school they put me back there, and I was able to make some plays. So that's kind of how it started for me. So.
Yeah, Nola, and he did it last year. He almost had one. Well, I can't remember what game that was.
I think it was Elon.
An Elon game on our campus 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, 2 seasons, my sophomore year.
Because we didn't play him last year. So, and we were 1 block away. So it could have been his second kickoff return for a touchdown. Like I mentioned to you earlier, we haven't had Nola really doing that. So for him to go in there and in a game with the the magnitude the game had in the opening kickoff, for him to take it at the goal line and go 100 yards was just tremendous. And some people ask me all the time, do they like do you like doing it? How do you feel about that, going back there, catching the kick or a punt, and then they got a 60-yard running head start, the defense coming down at you. So what do you think about when you're back there? Is there anything that's going through your mind?
I think it's really exciting just being back there. There's a lot of adrenaline running. So once the ball gets in your hand, it's kind of like just run through the smoke, as we always talk about, running through the smoke. So those guys on KOR was able to make their blocks, and I just followed through. So
yeah, it's Coach Pennypacker's kind of reference there, run through the smoke, because it's not going to be clean. Yeah. There's going to be something falling off here or something that's kind of in your way there, and just trust the guys in front of you. It's a big trust thing.
Yeah.
Trust the guys in front of you and make sure that they're doing their job, and everyone on that play pretty much did their job. And then when you get in the open field, the funny thing sometimes, because it happened to their guy actually, when you get in the open field and there's no one left but the kicker, and the kicker brings you down, you get
it's real frustrating.
It's not a good film session for the guy.
You get your chops busted when you come back to the sideline from the opposing team, because
yeah, Nate had a tackle. Was that this week?
Nate had a great tackle, because their guy was going down our sideline. And then Nate made a tackle on the guy, and that guy face masked Nate. So they ended up losing 15 yards from where they were on the return. So, Nate did a great job there. So it was awesome.
No, I always want to ask you, obviously not you're not looking down them at the 50. When did you know they're not catching me? But 20 yards left, 30 yards, half midfield.
Didn't you see him put his hands up?
It was probably around 50 yards, because I followed the block behind Jaron Hayek, so I kind of bended off of him. And once I seen the field to the side, I was just like.
And you had a couple guys with you in case anyone was coming.
And there was only one guy left, and it's that kicker I was talking about to his right when you watched it. And then Hayek got, in front. I'm not sure. Hayek, is he faster than you? He was kind of.
I don't know where you match up.
He was kind of stride for stride. He was stride for stride.
I think you're going to line him up on the 40 tomorrow morning for bragging.
No, we're not doing that.
For bragging rights here.
No, we're not doing that. But and then with Nola being playing both sides of the ball in high school and used to having the ball in his hands, but being a defensive player for us, anytime you get your hands on the ball, I'm sure that gets you pretty excited, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, obviously, you said we talked about last year at Richmond. So once he gets his hands, he knows where the end zone is. He's been able to find that when he gets his hands on the ball. Let's talk a little bit about your starting safety on this team. That's you do that a little bit more than you do kick returning in terms of number of plays per game. And talk about the pride your unit has put together. Obviously, talk a little bit about what Coach Adams talked about to you guys at halftime and how you guys came out and shut out a really good Richmond offense in the second half.
So the thing for us was kind of not just getting comfortable where we were at, just to continue to put our foot on the pedal and try and make plays. So last game we weren't able to have turnovers in the second half, so we kind of stressed the importance of getting those turnovers and making plays to help our team win. So we stressed that very. And
that was the big pick you talked about with Drew and all that stuff. So, it's funny. I'm going to go back to that kickoff return just for a second again, because that was the opening kickoff. And the week before, Nola was back there because Dez rolled his ankle. And we fair caught a lot of them.
Yeah.
So we didn't really give him the opportunity to return the kick. And then right before that kickoff, when they were all in the group, they're in the sideline, huddled up, make sure we got all 11 guys and all that. Ross goes to me over the headset. What are we doing here? Are we fair catching, or are we going to return? And I said, go for it. I said, don't fair catch. Just go for it. And then you made that decision the right one. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
I always say good players make good coaches, right?
No doubt. Most definitely. Yeah, and Noah's doing a great job for us on defense as well. We've been banged up in the secondary a little bit, so there's been a lot of moving parts. And Nola's been a consistent performer back there for us, and he's been doing a great job.
And that's the thing. One thing that you've, knock on wood, you've been able to stay healthy and be out there for the team. And you've had a lot of, Benford's been hurt. Amos was out for a while. And you had some young Waxter was in. Now he's been out. Right. So you've been able to work with a lot of younger guys. I know you're only a junior, but you take that leadership role back there?
Yeah. Just trying to help the younger guys and just to be on the same page when we get out there on the field. So we stress the importance of just communicating a lot, just communicating throughout practice. So once we get out on the field, it's easy to just talk it up and make plays. So,
and our secondary is almost like the old line, meaning there's 5 of them back there. So they need to have that communication, and that's the position this particular season so far, where, as you said, Julian Williams was out for a while. He's an experienced player. Amos been out for a few games. He's an experienced player. Benford's been missing. So Nola's been that steady guy. Daryl McDaniel, who's he's a little bit of an older guy, but now he's been out. So, Nola's been kind of the glue back there that kind of keep these guys going together. Kind of like Forrest and Drew in the middle with the linebackers, and then we have some older, guys up front with Fallon and Siegel and all that. So Nola has been a guy who's been really able to keep those guys going in the right direction. And Nola's like Drew and he's like Forrest from the fact that he's in watching film all the time, and he's doing all the extra things. Nola's in the office every day watching film, studying, so that allows him to, carry that over and help the younger guys and the guys that are in there. But there's been a lot of moving parts, so it's been a little bit of a challenge. But we're getting a lot of those guys back.
Which is great. Give you more depth, and obviously now those guys have the playing experience that you need. No, you grew up and you still live, I believe, in Staten Island, New York, so you're a New York City guy.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about your recruitment. How did you land at Villanova?
I was originally offered by Wagner College, and a couple of schools came by to recruit. Coach Trisciani came in, but he's not here now. But he came in and recruited me, and I came to the campus. I visited campus and met some of the guys here, Kwadi Rowe, Malik Reeves. I met some of those guys. So that was part of the decision. I just felt comfortable here, so that's why I made that decision.
I asked this to all the players that come on because it always seems that comfortability, which makes the feel of home that Villanova brings out. When, like you talk about, the older guys treat a young recruit coming in and make them feel special, and obviously now you're doing that for some of the younger guys when they come in, I'm sure.
Right.
Well, Noah's a guy that we'll put recruits with all the time. When we have now that he's the older guy, he'll be the student host, and we ask a lot of him from that perspective as well, and he does a great job. And Nola's, if we had all Nolas, we'd have no problems. You know what I mean? Because he does it all. He goes to class. He does everything he needs to do. He comes in and studies film on his own. He's during the summer months, if I'm in my office, if there's anybody out in the field doing extra work, it's going to be this guy. He'll be the first one out there, and he'll usually bring a couple of the younger guys along with him. So Nola does all the right things, makes all the good decisions. So, and that's why he's a good player.
Yeah.
When you do what we ask you to do, and then a little more, then you're going to become the player that you become, and a better player, and that's what Nola's doing. He's having a really nice career for us right now, and we hope that continues this Friday.
Yeah, Nola, we appreciate you taking some time. If you roll one back this week, I'm going to get it right, too. So if you want to go 100 yards again, I'll get it right, I promise.
For sure.
But we want to thank Nola for joining us. We're going to take a quick break here. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back with more talking Villanova football after this on 610 ESPN. head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste at only 96 calories. It's Miller time, and as you can tell by the highlight, we're joined by the quarterback of the Wildcats, number 12, Dan Smith. Dan's a grad student, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So Dan not only is leading the football team to 7 wins so far, but he's also in graduate school. Recently added to the Walter Payton Award watch list as well for all his accomplishments this season. But Dan, welcome to the show. And first off, how do you graduate college in 3 years being a football player? You got your priorities in order.
Long semesters.
Did you come in with some AP credits and then some summer school, I'm guessing, all went into that?
I came in with 17 credits from high school, and then after my first year and a half, I realized if I took 66 credits in 18 months or so, I could graduate. So just put my head down and got it done.
There you go.
Like that,
Something you and I probably thought about when we were in school, right?
I don't think I have. I'm hoping I have 66 credits. I don't even know where they are. But
right. So Dan, everyone wants to know. I get asked all the time, and I am thankful that your professor canceled your class tonight because we would have had you on earlier, but you always had class on Tuesday evening, so we couldn't have you on earlier. So now you're finally here. How did a starting quarterback from Camels come about being a Villanova Wildcat? Go ahead, share the story with everybody.
I don't even know where to start. I was kind of always looking for more competitive football, even like out of high school. Obviously I was recruited here, and I wanted to play at the highest level. And after 3 years playing for 2 at Campbell, I wanted something more still. So I put my name in the portal. I reached out to a bunch of schools.
And you put your name in the portal when?
Like May 14th, 15th, something like that.
After you graduated?
Yeah.
After you graduated. So the spring of your third year, you started for 2, you redshirted your first year, right? You went through all spring, you went through graduation commencement, and then you entered the portal.
Yeah.
All right. Back to you.
And then I heard back from, I could probably count how many schools on one hand that I heard back from. One of them was here. And once I heard back from Coach Adams, this became my number 1 choice because academically and athletically it seemed like the right fit for me. And it all worked out pretty quickly, and I'm glad I'm here.
Coach, why were you one of the schools that reached out? What did you see from tape that you liked about Dan, other than we've all seen the last 10 weeks? But
well, as Dan just said, we kind of knew about him as a high school player, but we went in a different direction. And then we were looking to potentially bring a quarterback in with, Zach graduating and so on, but we didn't have any openings. And then when we saw Dan's name in the portal in May, we actually, in June, had an opening. And so that's when it really went from June to Dan being here July 1st. It happened that fast. When did you and your mom and dad come up and sit in my office? Do you remember when? Probably sometime in June, I would think.
Like the 3rd week, maybe?
Yeah. It was like the 3rd week of June, and second session summer school was just about ready to get started. And, so we ended up getting an opening because we didn't have any openings in March, April, May. And then we ended up getting an opening in June. And then, we had the scholarship available. And Dan, was still out there, thankfully for us, and we were able to, bring him up, meet his mom, dad, and in turn they were able to meet us to make sure it would be a comfortable fit for them. And 2 to 3 weeks later, he's on campus, and I said this before. Jack Shetlick, Kadir Ishmael, J.J. Scarpella, the guys that are in our program, did a great job. And I saw it happening in July when they were all here for second session summer school because they're all learning a new. Bowden just got here. Chris Bowden just got here in the spring. So what really helped, I think, is nobody had 2-3 years of the system under their belt. It was almost an even playing field for competition. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? All they had was 15 spring practices in front of Dan from Chris Bowden's full, system.
Sure.
So, but to those guys' credit, they did a great job watching film with Dan and assisting him because we can't meet with the players that much in the summer. Yeah. So it's not like he and Bowden sat together every day and we're going through everything and, those things. It was a competition, and we had to carry it through preseason, and, Dan came out on top and been having a heck of a year for us.
Dan, how similar or different were the systems that you came from in Campbell to what Chris Bowden is running for you now? Was it a lot to learn? I mean, obviously you're a bright kid. We just went through that whole 66 credits or whatever that is. I'm amazed by that, by the way. But obviously, was some terminology similar? Was it a fast pickup for you, or you had to put some time in?
A lot of the concepts were the same because across football, a lot of the concepts are usually the same. It was more the terminology, like formations, the different positionings of certain players, and the names of the concepts were really the toughest things to learn.
And that's always the biggest difference. Blocking's blocking, tackling's tackling. You're in a shotgun zone read type system. That's what he was doing at Campbell. All those things. He actually, you broke a single season rushing record for quarterbacks at Campbell, right?
Something like that.
So he ran the ball a lot at Campbell, and obviously we had him run the ball a lot here last week. So. It's just the terminology. The mental part is probably the biggest challenge from not only Campbell to here, college to college, but also high school to college. It's just learning the different terminology because you'll call things different than we'll call it, and so on and so forth. So it's really just picking up the system and learning the jargon.
Dan, how big an adjustment is it? Like, when you come out of high school, you come in with a group of guys. There's 15 of you in the class, and you kind of come in and you have your growing pains or learn together. Now you're kind of thrown in as a guy who's already played 2 years of college football. You've been in a program for 3 years. I guess how is that adjustment for you coming in kind of as, hey, you didn't come here, you came here to compete for a starting job, but you're kind of new, but by yourself. You're not new with 15 new guys. So how did that all work out? And I know coaches talked about the guys in the quarterback room really accepted you well.
Yeah, like he said, they accepted me. They took me in from the start, and honestly, the entire team did. It wasn't just the quarterbacks. Every position kind of took me in. I'm roommates with Forrest Ryan, one of our captains. Him and Justin Covington came into my room the first day I was on campus in Stanford Hall, and they were like, if you need anything, like, here's our numbers. Just let us know if you have any problems, anything like that.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, that just speaks volumes of the guys we have within the program. And, as I said earlier, I saw it developing and happening from a distance a little bit with Dan and the quarterbacks. But Forrest came into my office and said, hey, there's only 3 of us. It's a four-person apartment over there on West Campus, and Forrest goes, hey, we have a space. We'll have them room with us. And I'm like, okay, that makes it easy on me. We don't have to worry about housing. Let's get the next thing taken care of, and so on. So, and to Dan's credit, he came in humble. He was a guy who his redshirt freshman year is when he posted some really good numbers, and he was on the Rookie of the Year to Jerry Rice watch list, and was one of the guys that was really, I don't know if you became a finalist for that, but close to it, and so on. So he didn't come in overly confident, he didn't come in cocky, he didn't come in conceited. He came in and competed and fit in, and our guys opened their arms and accepted them, and it just worked out. It's just been really awesome, and all of our guys still support Dan. Dan's still he's now one of the guys.
Yeah, it is amazing as a fan and being around the program for a long time, the seamless transition, the way you've stepped in and run this program and run this offense, and it's been great to watch from a fan's perspective. And I don't know, Dan, I guess the caliber of competition you're facing in the CAA is, I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming that was maybe part of the reason you wanted to step up in competition a little bit to try it at this level. Has it been what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, every week's a dogfight. You've seen that over the course of the past, month and a half now. I don't think there's been a game that hasn't been within a score or two that we've been a part of. And, everyone's just a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. But when you play against those guys every day during camp, that's your time to adjust to it.
Yeah, Dan's been doing a great job, and Campbell's having a good year. I saw them. Yeah. I think they're 6-2 or something like that. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but they're having a really good year. But week in and week out, we say it all the time. Yeah. As far as the FCS level, we think the CAA is going to be the most challenging top to bottom, and that has always been proven. When you look at the records, everyone just keeps knocking each other off and so on. You don't really have any of those games where when you look at your schedule preseason, okay, we got that one. That doesn't happen in the CAA. So you got to be ready every week.
Mm-hmm. Dan, your schedule's a little bit different. You're taking classes at night, so I guess that does give you some time. You guys normally practice in the morning, and then you can spend some time in the film room with Coach Bowden and try to get ready for this week. I'll ask specifically. You got a Friday night instead of a Saturday. We'll talk later about that, Coach. But just your preparation for this week, a little bit shorter than normal. Will you be ready?
Always.
I love it.
Yeah. How many classes are you taking? Why don't you explain to everybody what you are doing academically? Now you already have your undergraduate degree. What are you pursuing right now?
So right now I'm pursuing my MBA, Master's of Business Administration. So how the classes work is you can take like a full semester class, and that's 3 credits. Then you can take like a 7-week class, and that's a credit and a half. So I'm taking 2 3-credit classes on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then Wednesday I had a 7-week class the first 7 weeks, and now I'm in my second 7 weeks of another class.
You should have asked me when our radio show was going to be, and I would have told you not to take the Tuesday night class. We could have got that on a Thursday night.
You can just give him my job. He can come every week to what he's playing. So
no, but so his classes are at night because he's in the MBA program, and he's doing a great job there as well, and super student, super athlete, and super guy.
Obviously, a well-committed young man, obviously a bright young man, and actually a talented player as well. And Dan, we appreciate you taking time and joining us, and want to wish you luck Friday night against LIU.
And
thank you.
Thank your professor for canceling class tonight so you could be here tonight.
Yeah, the reason she canceled class, she actually slipped and hurt her knee. So we can take the weather for.
Yeah, we wish her well for it.
We wish her a speedy recovery.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break here. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time.
I know all about the benefits of being
We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Coach, got a couple of different things going on this weekend. We're going to play on a Friday night instead of a Saturday. We're going to step out of CAA play and take on Long Island University. So I guess we'll talk about the week. It's going to be talk about your week first. How you're going to prepare for a Friday night instead of a Saturday.
Yeah, it's been a little different. Sunday was the same. Post Saturday game, Sunday lifting, Sunday film study, so on and so forth. And then normally Monday's our guys' day off, but we actually had a little bit extended film study on Monday. To get started on LIU, and then we also had a brief practice on Monday, which is not what we normally do. And then Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be pretty much what they always are. And then Thursday is going to be the tricky one. Normally on Friday before a Saturday game, it's almost a walkthrough. It's a heavy special teams day and so on. And then your Thursday day is kind of your situational day where you're, going through some scripts and going through some short yardage goal line things. So that'll kind of be combined on this Thursday, the day before the game. And then Friday, Friday's obviously game day and it's a night game. So we'll have a meeting in the morning They'll go to class.
Yeah, that's unusual.
That'll be different.
Yeah, on a game day, it's usually a Saturday,
right.
Home or away. There's no class. Obviously.
That'll be different. They'll go to class, and then I think the school rule is you're allowed to, be released from class 5 hours before the kickoff. So, kickoff's at 7, and I don't think we have too many guys that are in class past 2 o'clock on a Friday anyway. But it'll just be different from that perspective, and their day off will be Saturday this week. So, a little different. Cut things back a little bit, try to save their legs. They just came through a challenging game with Richmond, obviously, and try to not overdo it, but still try to get everything you need to get covered, and with one less day.
And the other piece is normally this late in the year you're playing all conference games, all CAA games. With the 12-game schedule this year, you had an opportunity to pick up a fourth non-conference game. You get LIU to come in here in November in between a Richmond and a Delaware team. So obviously it's the next game on the schedule in terms of your preparation. But just talk about LIU a little bit. Coming in, Northeast Conference member coming in. They're making a transition up from Division II.
Yeah, when you look at them, first of all, we don't really have a lot of background with them. We don't really have a lot of knowledge of who they are and so on. But when you look at who they are, they're coming up from D2, as you said, and then getting into the FCS level in the NEC. Their head coach has been there, and I looked all this up. Their head coach has been there, I think, 21 years. One of the coordinators has been there 20-plus years. The other one's been there 19 years. So they've been together for a long time. When you look at the head coach's record, he's 160 wins and 70 losses, so he has a great winning culture in the program. When you look at their most recent records, last year they were 10-1. The year before that they were 8-2. The year before that they were 12-1. So they have a winning culture. They're just struggling right now in the transitional year. I don't know. I didn't go back far enough and look at last year's depth chart. I don't know if they lost a lot of seniors from last year's 10-1 team and so on. We're trying to study who they are this year, because when you get this late in the season, you might have looked at last year's stuff if it was earlier in the year, like some of your non-conference games of people you haven't played before. But we have, all their games, and they have all our games. So you do get a better feel for who you're playing right now, at least off of film. And we're looking at them, and, I know their record isn't what they want to be. They've had some close games. They're 0-8, and, they've had some challenging games within their league. But when you watch them on film, they have some guys, they got some 300-pounders on their offensive line. They've been rotating some quarterbacks a little bit. I've seen two different depth charts from when they played their last game to now who they list coming into ours. So I don't know if there was an injury there or anything like that. But this game came about because, as you said, Steve, it's the 12-game schedule. We didn't have that first week FBS game. We didn't have the Colgate game scheduled yet. So we're sitting there at one point with only 10 games in a 12-game season. So we can't have 10 games. So we needed to get the 11th, and this one fit in, and then the week 0 Colgate fit in, and if we didn't have this one, we would have ended up with 3 byes. Right. And I don't think you want 3 byes in one season either, because we had a bye after Colgate with the week 0 game, then we had the bye in the middle, which you normally have, and then this would have been another bye. And I don't know if that would have been a good thing, to be honest with you. So we ended up getting this game, and they're going to be a formidable opponent. We got to go in there and execute well. We got to hang on to the football and do everything we need to do. But they have some good players. They just haven't put it all together yet as a team.
And I want to mention Friday night is youth night and high school night as well. So free tickets for all the youth teams and the high school teams. So get out. It should be a great Friday night. The weather's supposed to warm up a little bit, so it should be a great night at Villanova Stadium. Come catch the Cats as they take on the LIU Sharks. So Coach is going to wrap it up for tonight. Best of luck Friday night. We look forward to doing this again next Tuesday. This wraps up the show with head coach Mark Ferrante. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite, the original light beer brewed for more taste and only 96 calories. Miller Lite, hold true. Thanks to our host, the Inn at the Villanova University. Thanks to Joe Gaines and Ryan Lennox back at the studio. Tune in to 610 ESPN when Villanova takes on LIU this Friday. Game time is 7 p.m. The pregame show will begin at 6:45. Our next Talkin' Villanova show will be next Tuesday, November 19th at 7 p.m. For Coach Ferrante, this is Steve Pannone. Thanks for listening to 610 ESPN.